Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 13 of the ES335 build, and this time we're going to be continuing with the preparations for getting the body glued up. Okay, so we're very nearly ready to get the back of the guitar glued onto this frame. However, there is a problem. I don't really have enough clamps to go around that, and the clamps I do have got a kind of a very small clamping area, and I think on the delicate sides of this it's not really the best option. So I need to find a solution to that. And what I'm going to do is to make some spool clamps. Now if you're not familiar with these, they're a round section of wood with a bolt that goes through it and some washers and a wing nut that you can tighten down around the edge of your guitar to make a clamp. You can buy them commercially, but they're very easy to make, and if you're like me and you build guitars and you don't like chucking stuff away, you're going to have loads of little bits of wood like this knocking around, offcuts from bodies, etc. And these are ideal for making the spool clamps out of. So what I'm going to do is take this 2-inch hole saw and I'm going to cut lots of little 2-inch round pieces of wood with a 6mm hole through the middle. And then I've got some 4mm thick cork tile which I will glue onto them to form the bodies of the clamps. And then I've got some 4-inch roofing bolts and some kind of large diameter washers and wing nuts that I can use to hold them all together and apply the clamping pressure with. So first things first is we'll drop onto the drill press and drill out some bodies. If anyone's wondering about the cost for the clamps, I'd say I've spent a little over £20 on all the materials, and that includes way more cork tile than I needed for this, so it probably breaks down to about £1 for each clamp, which is very cost effective, and these clamps should last a long time. The problem I can foresee is that the cork will break down with use, but I've got loads of spare so I can replace that if I need to. Okay, so I've got a few of these cut now, so I'll get some cork cut down and get it glued on. Okay, so the glue's dried on this cork now, and I've drilled 6mm hole through it as well for the bolt to go through. So I'm just going to very quickly trim this up. And with that trimmed, I'm just going to put a nut and bolt through here and tighten it up. And then I'm going to chuck this assembly up into a power drill and run it against the disc sander, and that will really quickly clean up these rough edges. And with these two little spools cleaned up, we can now assemble it into the clamp. It's simply a case of sticking the carriage bolt through one end, putting the other one on, making sure that the cork faces are together, another big washer, and put the wing nut on. And there you have your clamp. So I've got to do that another 20 times, so I'll be back with you in a minute and we'll see how we've done. Okay, so that's everything all cleaned up and ready to go now. I've had to make a couple of little amendments to my plan. Primarily, I don't know if you can see from there, but these bolts have got a little square shoulder up against the head, which is too big to go through the hole in the washer. So I've had to open the hole in the washer out in some of them, and also put a little bit of a countersink in these so that that bolt will sit nice and flush against the washer. I don't think it would have made any difference to how the clamp functioned, but aesthetically it looks better, so I've gone with it. So I'm literally just going to put all of these together now, and then we can have a look and see how they work. Okay, and there we have our 20 spool clamps. You might have noticed that I even managed to goof that up a little bit. I had some of this end mixed up in the pile with this end, so I had more of them than those, so I had to just go back and sort it all out, but we're there now. So next up, we need to get the parts of the body and see if these are going to do what we want them to do. Okay, so I've just done a little bit of marking out on this frame. I've marked that this is the back. It's very important that we get this right because this isn't perfectly symmetrical top to bottom. So if we put the back on the front and the front on the back, it's simply not going to work. I've also marked in the centre line on the front of the block a little bit more clearly and just reinforced the marks on the two ends of the back. And what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to first just test that these clamps actually do what they should be doing, which is clamping it all together. And then just try and get my head around how this is going to go together. Because as it is, and you might be able to see it in this section, these are going to need to be clamped into position. So I'm going to take a couple of test runs just to get my head straight on what the process is. Now for me, the logical thing to do would be to clamp it on the centre lines at the front and back. And while it is a little bit out, when it's not clamped, as soon as you start to push it into position, it all starts to kind of come together a little bit, and it is a lot better. So what I'm going to do is just start working my way around, clamping it into position, and hopefully we can get it where we need it to be. Well, that's all gone together quite nicely, really. I'm really happy with that. I've managed to get it so that it's all pretty much in line. I mean, it's only loosely clamped at the moment, and I'll need more clamps on to do it properly, but it matches up almost perfectly all of the way around, apart from when you get into these areas. And it's just these little areas here that the ribs are inside of the top. So there's going to be a little adjustment to the shape of the back, once this is glued up. But it's much better to have the ribs inside of the profile of the top rather than outside. If they're outside, there isn't enough material in the ribs to kind of compensate for that and to make it all work properly. But if they're kind of inside, it's not a problem. You can trim the top down ever so slightly, and we're talking probably 1/2 mil, 3/4 mil at the most, so it's not very much at all. So it's just a case of kind of like custom fitting everything and making it the right shape. But on the whole, I'm really pleased with that. So that's the clamping for the outside sorted. So my next task is to figure out how I'm going to clamp through these areas. And it might be a little bit of an issue because I haven't really got the kind of deep reach clamps that you would need to do that. However, I have got some big F clamps, and I think if I can position these correctly, they're going to reach kind of almost into the middle, so they should give me some good clamping pressure in this area. And I've got some smaller G clamps that will reach here, so hopefully we should be okay. So with all that sorted out, we're kind of pretty much at the point now where we can get this back glued on. However, I obviously don't want to rush this. So I'm going to leave this one here, but I'll be back in a couple of days' time when we'll get this element of the job finally sorted out. So as always, like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. and I'll see you very, very soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.